I definitely think that this generation has it easier than the generations before us.
There's a lot more open-mindedness than there was in the past.
For example, like maternity leave. That wasn't a thing back in the time of, when women first started off joining the workforce, versus now it's almost a standard at many corporations.
I think we have it better because the previous generation laid the groundwork for us.
I started working a long time ago. There was a very few women. They were doing menial things. And now today, we have women at the top of the corporate ladder.
We have so many incredible role models in roles of power and influence that we can look up to.
I mean, look at our VP, Sean Alexander.
We have a woman leader as our Chief Operations Officer, and 30 years ago, honestly, that would be unheard of.
I definitely believe that the next steps for progress lie in collaboration, communication, trust, and respect.
We have to keep telling our stories and keep sharing our stories so we all can learn and be better from them.
To me, some of the most important next steps for progress are mentorship and also having the confidence to be vocal in constructive ways.
Empathy is the key when it comes to fully understanding, or at least trying to understand, someone else's perspective. That is essential if you want to keep progressing and keep moving forward.
To all the women that came before me, thank you for trailblazing.
Nothing that we have and that we are currently doing right now could have been done without their efforts and sacrifices.
They were heroes. They were sheroes.
Women who have come before me have annihilated hurdles. They have removed roadblocks.
You fought a hard fight, and we're still fighting, but y'all did the grunt of the work. So thank you.
Thank you for being determined.
Thank you for being trailblazers.
Thank you for saving me a seat.
Thank you for paving the way.
You all inspire me to really persevere and aim to be at my best.
Thank you for breaking those glass ceilings. Because of you, I'm able to stand here today.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us to honor and celebrate International Women's Day. So thrilled to be with everybody. So, let me just start with a special thank you to all the V-teamers that we just watched share their stories, their experiences, what has inspired them in that opening video, and to all the Verizon leaders that are with us today that offer their perspectives. So this is a huge moment for us to honor that, and I love what someone just said. We fought a hard fight, and we're not done fighting. So it's from all of us talking and sharing those personal journeys, stories, experiences that we actually see how far we've come and what else has to be done. And so we know that the women that came before us made incredible strides. They've paved the way for so much of what we have and where we are. And our job is to pick up that torch and keep on running. And thank you to all the women who do that every day. And thank you to the allies that have stood by our sides and fight for the same fight. So we will absolutely be honoring those that came before. We're making an even more equitable world for all the young women around us and to come that we're gonna keep going. So I'm so excited to carry on these conversations. It's so important to us. It's inspiring, and we know that's gonna drive action. So with that in mind, this is gonna be an awesome event and an awesome day. I know there are viewing parties all over, lots of activity that are particularly happening in this day, but for the whole month of Women's History Month. So let's continue the conversation. We're gonna be asking questions, and with our coworkers, don't forget, talk to those people that are in our circles, our allies, and all the young girls about goals and dreams and how we bring that to a reality together. So, okay, here's the fun part. What are we gonna be doing today? We're gonna do it a little different. We're gonna give you the opportunity to have this be an engaging session, and you steer the conversation. So let's get started. And Raquel, why don't you come in and tell us how we're gonna lead this today?
Yeah, well, thank you, Sam. First of all, I'm happy to see that we're matching in our purple today.
Yes, like we didn't plan this, by the way. But yes, like you said, this is going to be a different conversation that we're having today because we're leaving it in your hands. So here's how it's gonna work. Using Slido, we're gonna ask you 3 questions surrounding the challenges that women face when they're developing their careers, tips for career development, and building leadership skills. So to get started, I want you to get out your devices. You can use your phone, you can use your laptop, and I want you to go to slido.com and use event code CELEBRATE-IWD. Now, for each question, we're gonna have a panel of amazing women leaders who will have a conversation based on your feedback. So take a second, make sure you get on Slido, use the event code. Again, it's CELEBRATE-IWD. Now, when you get on there, you should see the first question, and it's gonna be a word cloud. So in 1 or 2 words, folks, let's not write a paragraph. We've gotta do a word cloud with 1 or 2 words, and we're gonna ask you the greatest challenge that you've faced in achieving your career goals. Now, while you think about your answers, we're gonna give you a little dose of inspiration with a couple of videos highlighting mentorship moments with some of our women leaders.
So the best piece of advice that I received in my career was in my later 20s, and I would say it was as simple as this. There is a difference between listening and waiting for your turn to talk.
The best piece of advice I've received so far in my career, and I've received it 3 separate times, is do things that make you uncomfortable. The second you start to feel too comfortable, it's probably already past time when you should be looking for that next challenge. And so constantly push yourself, do things that you are gonna be building new skills and that you haven't done before to continue to collect the experiences to further your career.
One of the best pieces of advice that I ever received was from Ivan Seitenberg, who was our CEO probably about 3 CEOs ago. And I had just gotten promoted to a vice president. And he said to me, Kirk, which is what he called me, I want you to remember the power that you have at this level and to use your power strategically and well. And to remember that leadership isn't created when everything is going well. Leadership is created when things are difficult. That's when people look to you to use your power for good, to remove barriers, make decisions, and keep a team marching toward the goals. And that's the kind of leader that I want you to be. I think about that advice all the time, and I think now in the life of our business, it is more important than ever.
Wow, amazing. Now, look at all of these answers here. I'm seeing confidence, I'm seeing mentorship and opportunity, balancing work and home. A lot of these topics are what you all want to hear, and so I'm going to ask our panelist here, who we've welcomed to the stage. And joining us is Sam Hammock, as you all know, our Chief Human Resources Officer, Lynn Cox, our Chief Engineer, and Sasha Lucas, SVP of Customer Experience. Thank you all, ladies, for joining us today. Now, it looks like we really want to talk about confidence. I'm seeing this is really coming up in even the smaller words, but we've got confidence and mentorship, and let's see, what else do we want to talk about? Maybe opportunity. If we can talk about those 3 things, and Sam, I'm going to kick it to you first.
Yeah, thanks, Raquel. I see confidence in my ability, lack of confidence. Yeah. So let me start on that one because we'll lump those ones in. I hear this one a lot, and specifically with women, right? We have a tendency to kind of doubt ourselves too much, question our own ability, question the experiences that we have earned and delivered on. One of the things I think is really important with confidence is, and we hear this a lot, you ever hear like talk to yourself like you would talk to your friend? I use my own networking circles and my group of I have a personal board of directors, and that is made with, and I carry them through, but they keep me honest, and I actually use them to help build my confidence, right? And quite frankly, call out the blind spots that I really have, but help really instill, what am I good at? Why am I here? And use those people to kind of, we all hype women. There's a lot of talk about hype women, by the way. Like, they help with that confidence. And the other thing is, confidence is learned through practice. And keep putting yourself out there, stand in front, deliver those messages over and over again. You are confident, you're there for a reason. People want to hear your voice. And so I think surrounding yourself, using your network of people is really important to make sure that you're getting that input back in.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's key. I think, like you said, a lot of everything connects back to confidence. Any other panelists have anything else to comment?
I think every one of us has struggled in our career at some point with the confidence issue. And it's experience. It's leaning on the people around you that can help lift you up. But also, the more wins and the more successes you get under your belt, the more change you go through, honestly, the more confident you become. You've got to go through hard change and really lose your confidence in that change to come back even stronger. I always talk about adjacent change and radical change. A lot of times in our careers, we do adjacencies. You might do outside plant engineering and then go inside and do IOF. Like, that's not radically different. But when you used to go from wireline to wireless or, big things, that's when your confidence starts to struggle. And you need to go through that and do it over and over, because once you do it one time, you realize the feelings you have. You feel a certain way when you're going through change and your confidence is down, but you just put one foot in front of the next and you're going to get there. You start to have more confidence in yourself and your abilities and how you lead. So I just think a lot of it comes from experience and, for sure, leaning on your network and the people that can help build you up.
Change is definitely a catalyst for confidence. Sasha?
Yeah, I'm going to actually pick on a different word, the idea around opportunity, and finding the opportunities that exist and being really vocal about what you want to do with your career. They always say, no one's going to manage your career for you. I think it's important that people state what they want to do. And I think it's important to take risks. I think sometimes, to your point about adjacencies, we often stay in safe space. We stay in the things we know and we want to build a career. And I think it's important to own that and take risks and dive into the deep end, especially because you have the support system to make sure you don't fall.
Yep, exactly. Sasha, Lynn, Sam, thank you so much. A round of applause for our panelists. All right, we're going to move on to our next question. When it comes to leadership, what do you want to hear more about? More important skills for being a leader, building your brand as a leader, or the top tips for leading a team? Let us know in Slido.
So about 12 years ago, I'd just become a director at Verizon, and I was working on my first big project, and I came out of an extremely difficult meeting. And I was regrouping on it with a woman that I really admired. And she said to me, difficult meetings are often where you make the most progress. And what I realized at the time was that could be applied everywhere. We had frank discussion, and we actually had a path forward, even though it didn't feel good. So sometimes when you don't feel good, you're making the most progress. I think I've always focused on perfectionism. And when you focus on perfectionism, you kind of stall progress. And sometimes you can't be perfect if you want to make progress. And I think prior to that moment, I was just so focused on the perfect outcome, everybody always feeling great. And when you focus on that, you actually may not get to the end goal.
I would say, honestly, there's probably two I would love to share. First is take the hard jobs. As women in this business, it is really important that we get the really hard operational jobs, not just the program office jobs, the chief of staff jobs where we're really good at those, but the fundamental hard operational jobs of this company. So I took outside plant engineering, I ran operations centers, I've done a lot of some of the construction type jobs, and that I think was the defining change for my career and helped with the trajectory that I've gotten in terms of my career growth. So that is one piece. The other is you have a seat at the table because you earn the seat at the table. You're not lucky to be there, you've earned that seat, so make sure you use your voice, you speak up, and you're confident in the position that you have.
So many gems in those videos. Thank you to Erin and Lynn. Now, let's see, I think we're wrapping up what we have here for our next question. And now if we can pull that up so we can see what our panelists are going to be talking about. We've got most important skills for a leader, building your brand as a leader, or top tips for leading a team. Now, let's see what you all want to talk about here. All right, it looks like it might be a tight answer. We're waiting with bated breath.
Build your brand as a leader.
Build your brand as a leader. Okay, that's a good one. I think that's a good one. Now I'd like to welcome to the stage, joining us virtually from Texas, we have Laura DeMeritt, VP of HRBP, and we also know that Krista Bourne, our COO of the Consumer Group, was also going to join us from Texas today, but unfortunately had her mom had a little fall, but Krista is there taking care of her, reminding us that family is most important. Now our thoughts are with her, and we hope her mother gets well soon. And here in Basking Ridge, we want to welcome Wendy Taccetta, SVP of Nationwide Small Business and Channel Chief of Verizon, and Erin Crooks, Vice President of Compensation. Ladies, thank you for joining us today. Now, Laura, I'm going to kick it to you in Texas first.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thanks so much. What an honor to be here. And as you said, shout out to Krista. She's unable to be with us today, but whether you've had the opportunity to know her or not, she is someone who really lifts those around her, embraces that culture of kindness, as we've seen, hustles for a really great purpose, and knows that helping others find their light never diminishes on her own. And so she is an inspiration, an impactful leader, a woman, and a human being. So just a shout out to her, as I know she was supposed to be a part of this panel with us. But so building your brand as a leader is something that I think takes a long time to build. And you really need to think about a few different elements when thinking about your brand. And it's the foundation, whether it's the fundamentals or the differentiators that really align to like that high quality of what your brand may want to be. But thinking of your brand, I think about it in a few different ways, because I think everyone is in a different spot, and leadership is not by title or by direct reports. Leadership is at all levels. So thinking about these different elements, I think really are critical to your brand, whether it's strategy, the execution, even as we heard Lynn just share, culture, and also commitment. So when you think about strategy, it's not only thinking about the here and now, but the future, and how are you going to think about that for continued success. And then the execution is not only, how do you build the organizational systems around you, your teams, the people, but also delivering the results and actually taking the change to make things happen. The culture and commitment, I think, is something that's also super critical, whether you are a people leader or an individual contributor in a leadership position, because you need to be able to manage the eco environment and the space that you're in. And you also need to be able to show ways that you develop talent around you, whether it's a peer-to-peer or to a direct report. And then the personal proficiency, thinking about the ability to learn, staying active within the environment and being a student of the business, working with integrity, and then making bold decisions and creating an environment where you have trust. So those are just some of the things that I think about when you're talking about your brand.
Do you want to go first? Or?
I don't know what to add to that. I feel like Laura just answered every question I've ever had. So listen, when we're talking about brand for me, I'm going to take it from a slightly different angle. I often ask people, what are the 3 words you want to describe yourself? And I work hard and I get things done can't be one of the answers, because that is not a unique skill at Verizon. I think as you step into leadership, it's so important that you differentiate what you're good at and what's valuable in the position. So for many of us as individual contributors, it was our work ethic. It was our experience, it was our knowledge. But as you step into leadership, so much of your job is about multiplying your impact, getting others to achieve. So I actually think about brand as being at 3 levels. What is your brand? What is your brand? This is real, so this is what happened. I'm getting coached in real time. So what is your brand when you are talking to employees that are dealing with customers? So your frontline, the people who are doing the work, what is your brand there? Then what is your brand with your peer group? And then what is your brand with the people that influence the decisions you need made? And all 3 need to come with different levels of you. And some people think of that as being uncomfortable and that you might be, am I faking it? And the answer is no. It's about how effective can you be. So my advice to people is always, you should have promoters at the frontline level, you should have promoters as peers, and you should have promoters in the senior teams that influence the decisions that impact your line of business. And that is hard work. And what you have to think about is, what do I want to be at the table? Am I a challenger? Am I a unifier? Am I a driver of decisions? But everything doesn't require a response. How do you use your voice with those 3 different distinct groups to get work done? And I think it's the hardest part of leadership, is letting go of being a doer and really stepping into that role of being an influencer. Because we all take such pride in the checklist of things we've achieved. And really, as a leader, you have to start taking pride in the things your team achieves. And that's where your brand will be built. Not in your individual actions, but in the work you can influence.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I think of brand when I think of what's being said about me when I'm not actually hearing it. So what is being said when I'm not in the room? And for me, brand, like Wendy was saying, is about inspiring others and having a similar brand all the way up, that you're someone people want to work with, they want to get things done with you, and you're the person that when something hard comes, they want to call you to help them fix that. So when I really think of brand, it's what are people saying when I'm not around, which includes the people who you have you're kind of working across with. There are the people that work for you that you need to actually have do stuff so that you can be successful. And then it's actually, what is my brand when we're trying to make a really hard decision? And do they bring trust in the decision that I'm recommending to them?
So I think I want to take us back to something that was said earlier, that leadership is what happens in tough times. And I do think that's such a big part of the brand you want to build. It's not, can I cheer the team on? I think we can all be good at cheering on when things are going well. It's how do people show up for me when we're doing hard decisions? And do they know that we're going to help them? But here's one of the hardest things. It's a little bit of the self-talk that Sam was talking about. We like to say sometimes, I'm a shoulder-to-shoulder leader, so I'm going to do it with you. But the reality is that sometimes a good leader is going to let someone stand on their own. I think we would all agree that what has gotten us here is somebody really trusting us to step out on our own and being a supporter sometimes when really your instinct and maybe your control issues are to be shoulder to shoulder with them. But you want to be the kind of leader that helps people reach their dreams. So Laura, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No, I think all those things are great. And then I think the moments of reflection are also really good, right? Like of having a blend of everything that everybody said, but then the moments of reflection and pausing and practicing all the things that have been discussed so far.
So if there was one last lesson you would give someone, we've all seen people start out with a brand that maybe they didn't love and then have to do some work to get it better. What's the piece of advice that you would have? And Laura, let's start over with you.
I think the one piece of advice that I would have is be open to feedback and be honest with that, because the more open you are to feedback, the more chances you have to, correct whatever path that you were on to where you need to go.
Yeah, and I would also say is also be willing to give feedback to people, because that is how we bring all women up and all employees up, is if we actually take the time to give real meaningful feedback.
I think I'll just add, I'll piggyback on Sam's advice. That board of directors, whatever you call it, make sure that it will support you, but it will also coach you. Because none of us are perfect, and I think we'd all like to believe we're gonna be better versions of ourselves 5 years from now. And that means that we've got to have people that are giving us great advice. So I love that I'm surrounded by women who are not shy and will absolutely give great advice. I think we all just have an obligation to do that for each other.
Wow. Thank you all so much for a very powerful conversation. Laura, Wendy, Erin, thank you. All right, now this is our last question, and I want you all to go back to Slido, and you should see the question. And thinking about career development, what topic would you most want to hear about? Mentorship, work-life harmony, or how to create the career you want?
One of the best pieces of advice I received from a mentor was when I was in my early 30s. I had just had my first child, and like many of us at that point in time in our lives, I was struggling a bit with the idea of balance. She was a mentor to me, and she had been my boss at one point. She's still a really great friend to me to this day. She was one of those super women that has 3 kids, 3 dogs, an amazing career, and had it all figured out, at least that I thought. And she let me in on this idea and gave me some advice and said to me, you need to rethink your framing of balance as it relates to how long or the time duration. I often thought balance was a daily thing, maybe even a weekly thing. But really, she said, think about it over a lifetime. Think about it over a career. And she said, sometimes you are going to be a rock star mom. You are going to make it to that game. You are going to read to that kindergarten class. You are going to be in the moment, and you are going to be doing great things with your children. You might be good enough that day at work, and that's okay. And she said, and then on the other hand, you're gonna have things at work that are hugely important. You've worked really hard for them, a big deal, big deliverable, big launch. And she said, you might not be as in the moment as you wanted to be with your kids that day, but you were a rock star at work. You were an amazing colleague. You were an amazing employee. And she said, all of that is completely okay. Over the course of your life, or over the course of all that you will accomplish and all that you've just described, you will have balance. You just might not have it all at the same time. And so think about the idea of balance in work and life and professional and personal as something that is really long-term, and you can do it. You can have it all, just not all at that same exact point in time.
Thank you, Christina. Now, hopefully all of you have selected your answer in Slido, and I'm gonna introduce our panel who's joining us virtually from New York. I wanna welcome Yoli Stancil, VP of Network. All right, we've got a lot of celebration, that's right. VP of Network and Field Operations, we've got Genia Wilbourn, that's VP of Business Customer Operations, and Julie Slattery, Vice President of Network Engineering. Thank you all for joining us. Let's see, we've got our Slido and see what answer the people want to hear. All right, coming in with a 54%, how to create the career you want. A lot of career talk. So Yoli, if you don't mind, I'm going to kick it to you to start us off.
Well, thank you so much, Raquel. I am here with my board of directors, or at least 2 people that are on my board of directors. I would like to actually call them my squad or my tribe. And so we are excited to be here in Midtown, as you already mentioned, with an amazing group of phenomenal leaders. And the good news is we've been talking quite a bit this morning about creating the career that you want. And we know that it actually starts with you. It starts with you taking stock of who you are, thinking about the assets that you bring, the things that you do naturally well, and also the opportunities that you have. Also taking feedback and trying to determine how you course correct if there are things that you need to do differently. Also understanding all of the opportunities that there really are across Verizon. Somebody mentioned in one of the earlier panels, taking feedback, being open to feedback by others, because that will play a piece or a part in you trying to get a job or an opportunity when you actually go in for an interview, or if you're having a conversation with someone, because they're thinking, right, what is it that I know about this person? What is it that is in this person's brand that would be a good fit or not necessarily a good fit for the job? I'd also say making sure that you understand that creating the career that you want doesn't always mean going up, right? Sometimes you have to zigzag or go across. I think that was a comment that was shared this morning in the room. You need to be sure that you understand that sometimes taking a lateral is how you actually excel. And that piece continues to be important. I'm going to pass it to you, Gina.
Yeah, I mean, here's the only thing I would add, because this is a journey. It's a journey to take this, you know, when you think about your career. And so think about the job that you're in right now and make sure you're killing it in the job that you're in. All of the things that Yoli said, all true, right? Self-reflect. Make sure you have the ability to be agile. Make sure you've received that constructive feedback. And I know sometimes that's hard to get, but take it, get it, process it, and then take action on it. The second thing I would say is empower your people. Like whatever job you're in and you're leading people, empower your people to make the decision. The third I would say is, we always say effective communication. To me, that translates into tell your story. Regardless if you're telling the story of a business problem or a challenge or your story, make sure you are very crisp and clear about how you tell your story and speak with an impact. And then the fourth gift I would give is walk the walk, not just talk the talk, right? People don't like lip service. So whatever you're saying, make sure your actions match. Those are my four gifts that I give today.
Very, very well said. I would just add, be deliberate and be vocal about what you want, right? If you see opportunities that you are interested and want to go after, don't sit back and assume that the team and the leadership knows that. Be vocal about what you want, and be deliberate in steering your own career. I tell people all the time, earlier in my career, I was not as deliberate. When you're early on in your career, sometimes you just, it sort of happens to you, one job after another. And that works okay for a while until it doesn't, right? And then you find yourself, how did I get here? So be very deliberate in what is this next opportunity provide to me. Yoli said it too. Sometimes it might be up. Taken a lot of lateral moves in my career too. And it's always about, how is this going to expand my knowledge of the business? How is this going to add to what I've already done and help, grow the base that I have to work with? So be deliberate and be vocal.
Yes.
Just another small piece I'd add, and there was conversation in the room about this morning, really understanding talent GPS and the opportunities that are out there. Sometimes you might see someone doing a job, you might say, hey, I'm interested in doing that. Reach out to the person or find somebody on the team, ask them, can you shadow them? Can you sit on a call to better understand what it is that they do? I know Talent GPS will show you the job descriptions or the job information or families, but actually talking to someone that's doing the job, that could really show you like, these are skills I have, these are skills I need to learn, and if there is training or development that you need to gather, that you have the opportunity to get it. So those are our thoughts around building a career. I definitely think also make a list or say to yourself what the job you want. I should have mentioned this before. If there is a job that you want, you should be writing it down. These are my short-term goals. These are my long-term goals. I used to think short-term was 5 years, long-term was 10. Now I think short-term is 2 and long-term is 5, right? And so the more you think about it, and just write it down, I honestly think that we create things to go into fruition if we actually jot them down. The job I am in today, I wrote it down in 2010. Hashtag just saying.
I love that. Hashtag just saying. Thank you all ladies from New York. You brought the energy. I appreciate that. Now, thank you to all of our panelists for your insights, but if you have any questions, V-Teamers, that you still have, we are going to move into a Q&A session. So feel free to ask your questions in Slido and let us know if you have someone in mind that you would like to answer the question. Now, I do have one question that we'll have Sam come up and answer, if you don't mind, Sam. And I'm going to move in here.
Swap, yeah.
I'll swap you. Now the question is, the biggest challenge is having the visibility in a remote environment in a hierarchically focused work culture.
Yeah, it's a different challenge, right? But I think it's completely doable. So first, I cannot pause without saying thank you to the panel that we just had. And Yoli said something I think is really important, right? Is recognizing things, writing it down. We all have goals, but if your goal does not have a plan, that's called a dream. So you gotta write it down. You have to kind of put those things in action, talk to the people who are around you. And that talking to people, reaching out, she was talking about Talent GPS, right? We have the data to figure out who's in what jobs, and so we can learn more about those jobs. So to answer your question, that's probably my number one advice is, we know networking is really important to get that next job, to make sure that we're building the brand that we heard Wendy and Erin and Laura talking about as well. Networking is a really important piece of that job. How you think about that in a hybrid environment is extremely important. And again, it needs a plan. You have to be even more intentional about how you network, because we don't have those like authentic moments, right? Passing each other in the hall, the time when you talk to each other going in a meeting or coming out of a meeting.
Coffee.
Those were really important moments where you connected with people and you got to know them. They're still there, but you have to create them. You have to create them. So making sure that you're planning those times, it's really easy to get caught up in back-to-back meetings. You go in, you go out, right? They end at the top of the hour, they start at the bottom of the hour. There's no time for that social interaction to build that network. So you're gonna have to plan it. And it's absolutely possible in a hybrid environment. I worked hybrid for 15 years.
Wow.
And I don't think it hindered my career in any way, but it is work. So don't pretend it's not work. It's not just going to happen without that plan. And so I'm with Yoli. Write those things down and create an action plan of how you're going to get there.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sam.
Thanks.
You heard it all. Write it down. All right. We've got a lot of questions here, and I'm just going to ask our panelists, if you feel like you want to answer this, go ahead and move into this spot. Now, our second question, not to put you on the spot, but our second question is, what is the right strategy to have your voice heard as a woman and not come off as condescending or being walked over? I feel like this is a common question that we have where kind of have to tightrope and walk that balance. So if anyone has an answer to that question, and I will look at, we've got a lot of questions coming in here. Also have all right, Lynn.
So honestly, I don't think you need any specific strategy to have your voice heard as a woman. You just need to have your voice heard as a person. I said it earlier on the video. You have a seat at the table because you earned a seat at the table. That doesn't mean at the top level job. That's any job that you're in. So speak up the way you want to speak up. A lot of times as women, we often will hold back, and then somebody else at the table says exactly what you were thinking. Don't let that happen. Use your voice. Be curious. When you're curious and you feel ownership of the role you have, the work you're doing, you're going to be invested, in my opinion, to speak up more. So listen really well too, though. Don't over speak up. I always find the best leaders and the people I resonate with the most are the ones that listen really, really well. And when they speak up, they add great value to a conversation.
Yeah, listening is the skill.
Exactly.
Thank you, Lynn. All right, now we have a question for Wendy, if you want to come up. All right, and now this question is about advice for taking hard roles and hard moves. And so roles maybe you're not 100% ready for. You know that you have to step outside of your comfort zone, and the moves might be rewarding, but they might be difficult. I need advice to better navigate challenges in these roles.
Okay, so here's what I'll say. I don't want roles that aren't hard. I think every time I move, I want to be uncomfortable. And for the first part of my career, I really saw my experience as the biggest asset that I had. And I think that was good for a time. I would say over the last 10 years, every role I have taken has been one where I've been completely out of the water that I knew. Where I was suddenly writing down lists of questions after meetings. What I've learned is I'm actually more valuable that way. It's hard though, because we get addicted to being good at things. We get addicted to being subject matter experts. And one of the things that women and men need to do is realize you can be good at something else. And that's where my career really expanded, is when I went and tried different things. It's funny now that I'm back in B2B, where I started 23 years ago, but in the end, I don't think I get to this job if I hadn't done all the other jobs.
Right.
Because I'm a different learner today. I'm a better listener, I'm better at asking questions, and I really do respect the people doing the work. So I love nothing more than sitting next to somebody who's an expert of 10 years and having them teach me. So yesterday, shout out to our product team, I had Wendy University. This is what I do. When I take on new jobs, I ask the experts to come and sit down with me and curate a lesson plan. And it's good for them to show off what they're doing, but it's so great for me to just come to the meeting expecting to be curious. Yeah. And that is my suggestion to everyone as you take new jobs. Use it as an opportunity to be in rooms that are shocking to you, that you have questions in. Spend 50% of your time in rooms where you're uncomfortable. And before you know it, you will be an expert and making a much bigger impact than you used to.
Wow. Now, Wendy, before I let you go, we have to know, someone is dying to know what your shirt says. If you could do a little,
okay.
You know, a little more.
So here's the shirt.
Okay.
I won't be remembered as a woman who kept her mouth shut.
All right.
So,
there we go. Excellent. That was mic drop moment.
And I think everybody that works with me would agree. So thank you.
All right. All right, this question is going to be for Sasha, and it's, what do you think is the appropriate amount of time to stay in one role before looking at other opportunities?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I don't think there's one right answer. I think it's really about defining what your objectives are when you take on a role. You've heard a lot today. You got to take risks, you got to take new opportunities, and I think when you get into them, it's important to be clear of what you want to accomplish, how you're going to put your thumbprint on that particular mission at hand, and once you've achieved that, or laid the groundwork for the succession plan that you have in place to come in behind you and take the ball forward with a unique spin, then you're ready to move on. So it's not as simple as a time period. I think you got to have a plan, and you got to make something happen and make your mark on the role itself.
Have a plan and make it happen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sasha.
You got it.
All right, we're going to kick it to New York now and give a question to Yoli. All right, the excitement continues. Now, Yoli, this question is about imposter syndrome, a common topic that comes up. How do you handle imposter syndrome when taking on new roles and challenges?
So, great question. we had a long dialogue about that this morning, and the truth of it is, I think imposter syndrome just sneaks in when you least expect it. It's not always when you have a new role. Sometimes it's when you're even in a role that you're in, but a challenge comes up. And I think anytime that it comes up, you have to dig deep, you have to self-reflect, and remember that you've earned your seat at the table. I think Lynn mentioned that earlier. You've earned your seat at the table, and the reason that you're there is because you can actually do the job. You also have to remember that you have a group of people, a squad, a board of directors rooting for you, and that will give you honest feedback and coaching on how to help make sure that if you run into a problem that you solve it. And when you take a new job, remember, you have to lean on the people that are already enrolled. There are tons of experts that are physically already there, that know the job and understand it. And when you come in, you'll bring a new perspective. So I think you just have to tell that. We were calling her Susie. Imposter syndrome has a new name. It's Susie. And we were telling Susie that you just have to go away, right? I got this. I don't need you. I'm going to put you over here on the shelf, and I'm going to get it done.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, whether it's imposter syndrome or anxiety or negative thoughts, you have to acknowledge it's going to happen. It happens to everybody. So acknowledge it, see it, identify it, recognize it for what it is, and understand that's not reality. See it, put it aside, and then accept the reality that you are where you belong.
And I would add all of what these ladies said, and just remember, this is what I say to myself. I love who I am as a human being. I love who I've become as a leader, period, point blank. When you have knowledge of self and you really, really just embrace who you are, Susie and all of those other little people that get in your head, get them out of your head. And just remember, you are thebomb.com.
Yes. Bye-bye, Susie. Thank you, ladies. All right, well, we are out of time for Q&A, but there are so many different ways that we support women here at Verizon, and I want to allow us the opportunity to understand a snapshot of these resources. So I'm gonna welcome Erin Crooks, our Vice President of Compensation, back onto the stage to talk about that.
Thanks, Raquel. So what I wanted to just talk about was we've heard so many themes as we've kind of gone through this today, and we have a host of things here that help you both in your personal life as well as your work life. So if I start to think just high level on the types of things we have tuition reimbursement. What that does is that gives you the skills to really actually own your career. If you find out through Talent GPS you want this next job, but you need one thing, we have a wonderful tuition reimbursement program that can help you get those skills. We also have benefits like a robust time off policy that lets you take care of both your balance, we heard a lot about that today, but balance your personal and professional life, let you take off the times that matter to you and the days that you celebrate. We also have, and this kind of goes really to the personal side, near and dear to my heart. We have really great medical and dental plans that cover preventative care at almost 100% or no cost to you to let you really get ahead of things. And we always like to say in the comp and benefits world, self-care is not selfish. And then lastly, for those of you who had families, we have a robust backup daycare benefit. That is not just for children, that's for elder care too. And so we really kind of try to support the whole person here, and these are really about taking control of your life, not just here at work.
Thank you, Erin. It makes me so proud to hear all of these benefits and the ways that we empower and invest in our employees and our women here. Now, I can also think of 2 more resources. Now, V-Team, if you haven't already joined Employee Resource Group Verizon Wave, make sure you do so. Wave focuses on the professional development and advancement of women within Verizon and the technology sector. In fact, next week on March 14th, Wave co-lead Raquel Wilson will be discussing the importance of employee resource groups and how to build and grow them with women ERG leaders from LinkedIn and Kimberly Clark. Now, this will be a Women's CoLab event, and you won't want to miss it. Make sure to join Women's CoLab, a collection of personal and professional development resources curated with women in mind, open for all to join. Just scan the QR code to follow CoLab on LinkedIn and stay up to date on the latest events and resources. Now, a special thank you to all of our panelists who shared their insights today. Celebrating Women's History Month doesn't end here. In fact, we're just getting started. So check out today's story for more Women's History Month events as we continue celebrating the women who came before us, empower each other, and pave the way for those coming after us. I hope you all can take the gems you heard today, apply it in your own lives, and pass it on. Thank you for joining us today for such a powerful event. Until next time, you're up to speed.
Many women have inspired me through the years, starting from my own family, my friends, my peers, my leaders, and anybody I've encountered for. One key piece of advice that stays true to me and stays with me every day is surround yourself with positive people. People that tell you, you can do it, be bold. And this has been an enormous piece of advice that I've really kept true to myself, and I've tried to transmit as well in turns to my daughters, my peer, and the people I come to.
I challenge to mention one person when it comes to who has had the biggest impact. We're not the same as any of them, and I think having lots of examples out there, little bits of behavior where you think, That's fantastic, and that's really inspiring, and that's really motivating. That's what makes a difference for me. Protecting and appreciating your own authenticity, and others giving you that extra confidence to say, be you.
I think the best advice that I've received from a woman coming before me or passing the baton to me has been, when fear is lying to you, tell it to shut up. It will take on its own shape, form, and personality. It will convince you that you are not enough. It will convince you that you don't deserve a seat at the table. It will convince you the way that you show up isn't in line with what the expectation is, and you have to literally tell it to be quiet. We really have to refocus the narratives around not deserving a seat at the table, not being enough. We are enough. We are a powerful force.